being able to block range damage with any weapon. I think we like the way it's playing in PTR. I think overall, this is the direction we want to move in. We're happy with that. Welcome to Forged in Aeternum, where we talk about all things New World. Today we're going to do an episode of Balance of Power. Today we're going to cover the Season 2 combat changes. How do we think they're playing in PTR? Any changes we made as a result of PTR? And to get this moving, we're going to pass it over to Michael for the questions.
Well, so overall, are you happy with the underpowered, underused initiative in Season 2?
So as a reminder to people who may not be familiar, what this initiative was that we looked at all weapons in the game and tried to find the one or two abilities that we thought were underperforming or weren't used too much, and we tried to buff them so they became a contender. I think overall, just to be frank, we're only moderately happy on this one. I think we pushed some of the abilities into contention, but a lot of the other ones I don't think we pushed far enough, and we weren't seeing quite the reception and excitement behind them. I think part of this is due to we just really have a lot of animation budget, and I think some of these things we really had to push with animation to get viable. But with that said, we're going to talk a little bit. There's some changes we are making as a result of PTR to push a little bit further. I think that will help. And this is also one where we have great data. We can see what builds people are using, and we'll see if we didn't affect the change we hoped we would get, we'll push a little further.
What about the other big change, the change to blocking mechanics? How do you think those are playing out?
So overall, just at a high level, our goal here was with the blocking changes to make blocking a little more viable. In a lot of situations, dodging just trumps blocking as an option. So the goal was let's bring blocking up. Let's make it a strategic, tactical option for players. So overall, we're pretty happy with these changes. I think, the two smaller ones, moving a little faster while blocking, the exhausted state getting, you don't get the slowdown if it's caused from a block break. I think those are very good. And I think the bigger change, like being able to block range damage with any weapon, I think we like the way it's playing in PTR. I think overall, this is the direction we want to move in. We're happy with that. I think in terms of the overall strength of it, it is tuned maybe a little on the high side, 70% damage mitigation with two-handed, and a change we're making as a result of PTR, both one-handed and magic will now be at 50%. We think these are good numbers, but it might be a little bit on the high side. We'll be keeping a lookout on it, but we love the way it's playing right now.
So earlier you mentioned you may be pushing some abilities a bit further or making changes based on PTR. So are there any changes to Fire Staff?
Yes, Fire Staff is one where we thought, Incinerate, for instance, we didn't quite move the needle enough with the changes we made there. And I think, in essence, the pushback also was creating problems in a variety of situations. So we've decided to go with a different tactic here. We've removed the pushback completely, and instead what we're doing is we're adding in an interrupt, a stagger. And I think what that'll do is, because the Fire Staff doesn't really have a stagger in its arsenal, it'll sort of give people a different tool if they want to build an interrupt into their build. So that's a change we're going to make. It is going to come with a damage reduction, because now it does, interrupt and cause a stagger. But I think that'll be a nice position for this ability. Wow, that's a fast motorcycle.
How about Rapier?
Rapier is another one. Flurry, I think we didn't get quite the traction and uptake we were hoping with the changes. We pushed the homing a little bit, but I don't think it made enough of a difference. And as we tried to push the homing more, things started to break down a little bit. So I think we went with another tactic here. We've added grit to Flurry, which I think gives it a nice position in the Rapier arsenal. And we hope that sort of, causes people to give it a try and add it to their build.
And Life Staff.
So Life Staff, we're making a couple changes. First, Light's Embrace. We got overwhelming feedback that the shorter range was not fun and it was going to kill the ability. We agree. We did that because we thought we were going to see Light's Embrace affect all groups in a raid. We were able to get that tech in, so now that it only affects your group, we're removing that distance, which I think will make a lot of people happy. Second, Orb of Fortification, I think, it wasn't, Orb of Protection. The Fortify on it wasn't providing enough of a Fortify with the new fortification rule, so we upped that to 20%. I think that'll be a big help there. And then Light's Embrace, we buffed the healing a little bit, so I think you get a 20% buff now per buff on it.
And everyone's favorite, the bow.
The bow. our problem child, but also one of the most exciting and used weapons in the game. So we want to make sure it's playing well. So we do like the change to evasive tactics, keeping it in the left tree. I think that's a change we're going to stick with. But what we do want to do is really buff that tree to make it viable. And I think we needed to do some work there. So we're doing 3 things. One, rending headshot is now going from 3 seconds to 5 seconds. So increasing that duration, I think, will help. Second, poison shot, we're buffing the damage a little bit. So the dot's going to be a little bit quicker, which will help a ton. And last, rain of arrows, I think we're speeding it up. I think about 50%. Like the time between when you fire the ability and it does damage is going to be much quicker. And I think those 3 changes are hopefully going to make that left tree more viable. And I think, create diverse builds where you can go left tree, right tree, or mix a little bit. So we think with all these changes, the bow is going to be in a good spot, but we'll keep an eye on it. We want to make sure the bow remains fun to use and is viable.
All right, and moving on, how do you feel about the new Heartrune?
So the Heartrune, we got some feedback that it feels a little underwhelming, and in general, we tend to agree. So I think there's 2 changes we're making right away as a result of PTR. One, we're going to increase the damage of it by 15%. Second, there were some bugs and some issues with the input buffering that we fixed, so that I think will make it a little easier to fire off, a little more fluid. So I think those 2 changes will be nice and sort of help it out. But we'll also keep an eye on this. There's a chance we speed up the activation of it in the future if we're not seeing enough usage of this.
And finally, what are your thoughts on the current meta with the Season 2 changes?
Well, so it's hard to tell, with just a PTR, but what we're seeing is that I think this might be a little bit more of a shift to the melee meta. I don't think we want to go too far there. We definitely don't. Our goal is to have it be relatively balanced. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. And if we see sort of melee starting to creep back into dominance, that's something that we'll be taking action on. And in fact, with that in mind, I think there's 2 weapons that we do feel are a little strong on the melee side that we're going to take some preemptive action on. The first is Sword and Shield. So on the Sword and Shield, there's the oppressive perk. The opportunistic perk, which gives people extra damage right now for anyone that's slowed. We're going to change that so that it's not damage across the board and it's just abilities. And the reasoning for that is right now, Sword is obviously pretty sticky and it's getting a lot of its damage from basic attacks. So I think what we like about this is by buffing the ability, I think it creates a nice sort of complement to the changes we made to reverse stab and whirling blade. So I think it's a good change. It's a slight nerf, but it also complements some of the other changes. And I think, like I said, Sword and Shield's a little bit on the strong side, so it needed something. The other weapon on the melee side that we feel is a little bit strong is Greatsword. And Greatsword, we're seeing strength on the PvE side. It is a de facto DPS weapon in expeditions, and we're seeing it being very strong in PvP. So in this one, I think what we've decided to do is take a look at the base damage, and we're going to be reducing that probably around 4 or 5% to sort of bring it down more in line with other weapons.
All right, so that is it for the questions. How about a community question?
For a community question, we'd love to hear what you all really want for a weapon. We haven't announced yet what the Season 3 weapon is, but we're starting to prototype and think about the weapon after that. So let us know, what do you want to see in game? And thanks for joining us today on Balance of Power. Please let us know if you like the show, like and subscribe, and we'll see you in Aeternum.
Rest assured that anybody who owns a home in First Light currently, that will be refunded to you. All your furniture will be moved to the storage units, but rest assured you will get all of that back.